You say that you've grown from your more Eastern path, where accepting what is called equanimity, and you've understood that it is more a matter of faith, and you wish to pursue this dimension of the journey. And so you ask, how do I love God? How do I allow myself to be loved? Who is Jesus? Is he different to Christ? How does one actually attain Theosis? We'll start with the last question. Attaining Theosis. What is Theosis? That spiritual word at the core of Orthodox mystical spirituality, which is the journey of all the monks and laypersons from the centuries before us, from the dawn of Christianity. These inner efforts to purify, to become receptive, to make more accessible, make ourselves more accessible to the grace of God, to begin to incarnate something of that unconditional love. It is translated as divinization. Some have called it God realization. So this path, interestingly enough, begins with the same fundamentals as the work as presented in the fourth way. It is called the watch of the heart in the Orthodox tradition. Gurdjieff calls it self-observation. We must begin with an inner self-awareness that is more objective, that can see without being entangled in what we are seeing, so that we can begin to make changes to the patterns of our behavior. It is these very patterns, this ego-dominated version of ourselves, that keeps us from the sensitivity necessary to experience God. Certainly, the holy can break through all that and reach us, but in order to live day to day in the ordinary moments of life in contact with the sacred, we have to do this inner work of cleansing, of realigning, of getting rid of, releasing ourselves from negative behavior that weighs us down, darkens our souls to such an extent that we cannot receive the finer energy of spirit. So there is a practical step-by-step inner journey, spiritual, psychological, that leads us towards a state of being, a quality of consciousness that aligns us with divine reality. You can see that right away we have to be liberated from the prison of our ego desires and requirements, all the wounds that we have from life based on what people think of us, all the noise in our head that is random and not unified around our purpose in life. Just recognizing our multiplicity, how we lack a central core of ourselves, is crucial to connection with God. Because if we are always fragmented, then nothing is in charge, nothing is leading towards that purpose. The world lives in the illusion that we are unified, that we are one person because we see one person in the mirror. But psychologically, there is not one I. There is the I that is angry, the I that is peaceful, the I that is hungry, the I that doesn't care about anything, on and on and on. And we must choose which I is going to be running the show. And if your aim is to know God, then that small set of eyes must be the one that you nurture, that you strengthen, that you protect from the other eyes within you that do not want that aggressively fight against it. This is the spiritual battle. And most people are completely asleep to it. They just are whatever is going on within them, total chaos. And in that state, nothing can happen. Certainly nothing in a spiritual context. As we do this work, as we seek to let the better parts of ourselves be in charge more often, as we recognize the intensity of the enemy within, of that which would keep us from this more refined, lighter state of being, we realize that this journey is demanding of our attention, of our vigilance. As when Jesus says, "Watch, do not sleep," we begin to see more deeply into the scriptural teachings on these matters of awakening, of turning to God, turning to the light. We realize that these are not opinions or beliefs, these are practical teachings on a path to Theosis, God consciousness. And all of our work is internal, with ourselves, recognizing with clear honesty, sometimes brutal honesty, how we have always functioned before, and how we have to go against the grain of that functioning to make room for a different kind of being that is more receptive to the holy. In that effort, we need the help of grace, certainly. And from that need is generated prayer, humility, recognition of need, of dependence on the one. And all these things lead us towards an openness to grace that reveals to us how much we are indeed loved. Loved in a way that is mysterious because it is divine, because it is unconditional. And this recognition of being loved, of being helped, even in our worst of times, generates the desire to love in return. We love the one who first loved us. So, in order to proceed, it is important to put ourselves in a position where we can begin to sense how good is that presence, watching over us, guiding us, helping us along the way. And the more we become aware of this, the more we love that presence, and the more we are motivated to overcome that within us, wounds, imitations, habits, that stands in the way of communion with the sacred. To allow yourself to be loved is to separate yourself from all of the thoughts within and feelings within that you have that cause you to feel unlovable. Recognizing that all of those thoughts are another form of self-obsession. To transcend that, to return to an essential state of your being, as you might recall from childhood, before there were such issues of allowing yourself to be loved. Just being in the simplicity and innocence of our essence. That enables us to let ourselves be loved by the fact that we exist in this wondrous world, so obscured by human ways, by our mistakes, our ignorance. You ask, who is Jesus? Is he different from Christ? No, of course not. Christ means the anointed one. Jesus is the anointed one. How is he anointed? Because he reveals to us this ultimate nature of God, previously unknown to humanity, that God is Abba, Daddy, that it is an intimate, loving connection that causes us to understand the meaning and purpose of our life and the direction of our life. This is essential to the mission of Christ, and therefore to our understanding how he traces this path for us. How in the crucifixion, resurrection, in the teachings, we find not only the historicity of this manifested love, but the multidimensional symbolisms of our own inner journey. In order to live the resurrected life, we must die to something. And so we must discover what it is that we must die to in order to live in the consciousness of the kingdom of God within, the presence of the holy in all things. Clearly you can see that selfishness, a desire for power, a need to dominate others, constant negativity, constant self-satisfaction and self-comfort is going in the other direction of that pathway that ultimately cleanses the inside of the cup to enable us to also become incarnations of unconditional love.